Hello, everyone. We are launching a series of 5 podcasts about media literacy, which is a project that is founded by U.S. Embassy in Tirana and implemented by Albanian Media Institute. This podcast is going to address a specific issue related to media literacy in order to enable us to understand, analyze, and evaluate all the messages that media try to give us. So today we are going to dive into a complicated concept that are really important for everyone, and we are going to talk about media literacy. Now, don't worry if this may sound complicated to you, because by the end of this episode, you will know exactly what it is and why it matters. So let's break it down. Media literacy is all about being smart and understanding whenever we look at the media, and when I say media, that includes everything that you and me and everyone can see, hear, or read. For example, TV shows, YouTube videos, social media, newspapers, ads, basically everything that gives you or us information about something. When we are media literate, we try to not just believe everything that we see. Instead, we try to stop and to think about it, and we try to do research on our own to find out if what we are seeing or what we are hearing is true or not. And so it's basically we are trying to find out if what we are hearing is just half of the story or if it is the whole truth. Now, why this may be such a big deal? Well, let's think about it. We are surrounded by media from the moment that we wake up to check our phone, and by the time that we go to bed, we are surrounded by media. It is in billboards, it is in apps, it is in magazines, it is in TV. Sometimes media can be really helpful and informative. It can teach us things, it can entertain us, but other times it can manipulate us and it can play with our feelings. So let's talk about some of the tricks that media plays for us. First, there is something that is called emotional media. This is when media tries to make us feel really happy, really excited, sad, or even scared. And the reason why is because when we feel strongly about something, we are more likely to remember it or to take some action. For example, in some animal shelter ads, we might see pictures of sad animals with dramatic music, and that makes us to want to help them and maybe adopt one, right? Now, I'm not saying that adoption is wrong. Actually, it's quite a good thing. But media literacy teaches us how to spot that our feelings are being used. And another thing that is important when we talk about media literacy is to recognize the purpose of media has. Well, media is created for a reason. It could be to inform us, it could be to entertain us, it could be to sell us something. For example, like, have you ever watched one of these unboxing videos on YouTube? While it may sound like a fun thing, we should really take our time and think about it. Did this person buy the gadget because they really wanted it and are going to use it, or are they being paid by the company to show it to you? That doesn't necessarily mean that the gadget is bad or is low quality. It just means that they are trying to sell us instead of informing us. Even news on TV usually has a purpose. For example, some news stories are made to inform us, but sometimes they are made to get more viewers. This is why headlines sometimes have eye-catching titles. For example, cheating scandal. While sometimes it may be true, many other times it's just a clickbait to make us to click on the link. Finally, I also want to give you a short example of what does it mean to be media literate. Imagine, for example, we are scrolling through our phones on social media and we notice someone who is promoting a product and which promises to help us lose weight. Is this person really trying to help us to lose weight, or is this person being paid by a company to promote the product? So being media literate can help us spot that while this person may be genuine and maybe really wants to help us and maybe the product really works, we should also think about that maybe this person is just going to try and to sell us something. But that's enough of me talking. because in our podcast, a special guest is going to join. Her name is Sara. She's an English teacher in Albania and she's from US. So Sara, thank you so much for joining our podcast, and I'm going to dive right into the question. But first, can you do a short introduction about yourself, who you are, and what you're doing in Albania?
Of course. I'm an American and Eurocaster. I'm teaching English. I teach mostly to primary students, and so they range anywhere from the ages of 6, 7 to about 13. So this is a population that is very much using media. They would really benefit from learning about media literacy.
So, Sara, what does media literacy means to you?
To me, as a teacher, media literacy is really understanding and being able to critically evaluate the content that we're consuming. So as a teacher, that would mean equipping students with the tools that they would need to look at something, to really question what they're seeing, whether that's on social media or on the news or even in different advertisements that they're coming across.
Amazing discussion so far. So the second question is, can you share an example of how media has influenced a student choices, either in a good way or in a bad way?
We have recently, in our 8th grade classes, we've been doing a unit on health and how to keep yourself healthy. And so when I was asking my students, what are some ways that you keep yourself healthy? One of them had said something about there's the slimming tea trend that's going around on social media. It's on Instagram and TikTok, all those sites. And there's a lot of influencers and online advertisements that are using these teas to promote quick solutions to weight loss and saying that you can lose this many pounds so quickly by drinking this tea. And so we had a student that mentioned, oh, I might consider trying that. I think it's a really healthy way to lose weight. And so we kind of had to pause the lesson and have a class conversation about what it means to verify sources. Where do you find medical information? Where do you find trends that are actually backed by science versus not? And by the end, I hope that the students took away how important it is to fact check these kind of things before accepting them as truth and making potentially really dangerous decisions for their bodies, for people around them, for their community.
Great answer. So the question number 3 is, how can media literacy help students spot fake news or misinformation?
We are teaching them primarily how to verify sources and how to cross-check information. And so by doing this, we're kind of hoping that they're going to spot red flags. For example, we might practice in some lesson to look for credible websites that are run by experts, by doctors, by governments, and to really start evaluating whether these article claims are backed by evidence and facts versus something that just sounds really nice but doesn't actually mean anything significant.
Okay, in your opinion, what's the biggest challenge when it comes to understanding media literacy in schools, for example?
The biggest challenge is the fact that the younger generations are so inundated with information all the time because they're on media all the time. And it's such a fast-paced world that we're living in. So it's difficult sometimes to really teach them. You have to pause, take it slow, reflect, and really question this information when it's coming at them at such high speeds. So that can be kind of difficult, but it is really rewarding once they're able to start doing that on their own, because it's a really essential skill that they need as they're growing up in such a technology-packed world.
Okay, and the final question for you is, how do you explain to students that not everything that we see online is trustworthy or real?
We can use different examples of things that they can relate to. So fake product reviews they might be reading on some kind of website, or Photoshop photos that they're seeing on magazines. It's really important, I think, for the folks in their lives that are older than them to be practicing media literate skills around them, to show them, oh, I'm reading this thing on, or I see this thing on TikTok, and I, as the grown-up, I know how to evaluate this and to model that for them. Because once they see how how prominent these manipulated pieces of information are around us, but also seeing how adults are like really being critical and analyzing them, they in turn start to become more cautious themselves, and they start asking questions themselves, and instead of just believing in everything that they see.
Wait, I also want to go a bit outside of the script here, because I believe that sometimes people have knowledge about something, yet they refuse to show it and prefer to look clueless because this benefits them. For example, people who are on the right side of political spectrum refuse to listen to the left-wing media, and people who are on the left side of the political spectrum refuse to listen to the right-wing media. Why do you think this may happen?
I mean, I think it's an effect of confirmation bias, right? Like if you believe in something so strongly, you're really only going to be seeking out information and news sources and experts that back up on what you're saying. As much as it's hard to do, and as much as like a lot of people don't really want to do, it's really important that we start branching out and looking at sources that go beyond our own personal opinions or what we already know, because it's really important to be looking on the outside specter of what we exist within. So I definitely think that that is a great example of confirmation bias and why we should actively be trying to fight against it.
Okay, seems we have reached the end. We talked about media literacy, specifically understanding media literacy and what media literacy is. I want to say thank you again to Sara for joining me in the podcast and accepting my invitation. Make sure to not stop listening to the first episode, because there are other 4 episodes who are even better and more interesting than the first one. So make sure to follow along. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.